What's up guys, Dino here with Playback Racing. It's a quick little video just to show placement of a few components, as the instructions weren't exactly clear, but the kit is awesome. So the kit's actually really high quality. I'm surprised at how everything fits perfectly. Even all the holes matched up. We didn't have to re-drill anything or move anything. Everything comes with the backing plate, so if you paint them correctly, you can get a cool look. Kelderman includes these brackets to hold the external reservoir for the shocks, and if you aim it correctly, it actually will say Kelderman right there. Got some spacers that go on these components, depending on what shock you're using. Tons of brackets included with the kit. Also new bolts, new U-bolts for everything. Brackets to hold your brake lines. So the factory instructions show this box mounted over to the left with one tank on the right and the other tank in the front. But we went ahead and welded up our own brackets so that the tanks can be on each side of the box as it's centered. And I don't know, that just kind of gave me a better look of it if somebody were to peek down here. One thing I will say is that everything in this kit is super strong. Our kit included the sway bar links with the aftermarket sway bar, which is a little thicker. So we have some drops right here. The ride height sensors were probably some of the easiest things to install. They came with that bracket. You can rotate this arm if you have to get it closer or further away, also changing the direction of the ball joint. So if you notice, coming off of the rear bags, it actually goes to this tank. This is actually a through tank. So the main tank airs up the rear corners through here to there. The purpose of this tank is that whenever you're carrying a heavy load, or the bag actually hits a big bump and it goes up in pressure, this tank will share some of that expansion so that the bag doesn't have to take the big load. Now the front setup came with these drops for the sway bar, just to bring the geometry of everything a little bit lower. Here we have the arm that swings down for the steering. Now Kelderman did something interesting here. That joint usually comes in through the top. What they did is they redid the hole and tapered it so it could come through the bottom. The reason they did this is because the original arm would swing down really low, but it would put a lot of stress on the gearbox. So they reiterated it like this. We use stainless steel brake lines, but they are factory brackets. You just have to cut them like this and do a little bit of bending to make sure that everything stretches the way it needs to. We included in our installation of the Kelderman lift kit the twin shock absorbed steering dampener. It mounts to the differential casing and to the tie rod end adjustments. Everything fits so perfectly. I really do have to give it to Kelderman for that. They have a good fitment, quality control. The thing you have to be careful with is the rubbing on the lines. So in certain areas where it says to cut this bracket, for example, if I cut this bracket, it would give it a jagged edge and it would be even worse. So I left it like that, nice and round, and I just reinforced this line in this area. One thing Kelderman did very plug and play were the ride height sensors. They're all labeled, and it actually permits you to run them really well. The front two are a little longer than the back two because they do have to stretch all the way forward. Here we go again, as I was talking about fitment, how all the bends, everything corresponds perfectly with the bolts, and these are actually the upper bag perches in the rear. This one also holds on to the bar and goes straight down to the diff. Now Kelderman really likes his name because you can see it plastered on everything, but it sure does look good. The shocks still have the risers, and one cool feature is the alignment bolt here on the bottom arm. So on the ride height sensor here in the front, we have to actually find a good location for it. You have to drill these holes and you have to tap them. Speaking of tapping holes, here in the front, the upper bag perch, also you have to tap those two bolts into the frame that are on the back side. The top just mounts to the existing hole. Again, we have these cool reservoir mounts. This truck is getting a lot of custom work done on the front as well, so we don't have the grill on, but this is about maximum ride height for this kit. It sure is hot here in Texas. Now, one thing I will tell you about this kit that I would change, or let's say improve upon, is the fact that when you're all the way down, if you want to go all the way up, you have to go about halfway up and wait for the tank to refill until you can hit the preset that takes you all the way to the top. There is a modification where people put 2 air compressors, and that would probably solve the problem of quickly filling up between, but I feel like a bigger tank would be called for on this setup, simply because the bags are so big that whenever you air them up from 0, they pull a lot of volume. So these smaller tanks that are included in the kit get empty really quick. So yeah, there's 2 of them, but they are kind of small. Like, I imagine filling up the front bags alone would eat up both of these tanks. Here's the airlift controller that we went with. Easy to program, easy to use. I actually set up with these 5 buttons, 5 presets going from lowest to highest. Right now we're at the highest. If you were to touch one of these buttons, it'll kind of confirm in green letters where you will land if you hit it again. So let's hit it twice. And it basically regulated to that preset. All right, let's go down a little more. Let's hit the 1 second to last. And finally, whenever you get to where you're going, you can hold the bottom one to air out. Here we have the truck at its lowest position. Let's go ahead and go all the way up. See what I mean? It ran out of pressure. But since we already selected that preset, after the compressor does what it has to do and fills up the tanks, it will continue its journey up to the top. Before I forget, also, whenever you change the geometry of the suspension so much, the drive line will be at a pretty aggressive angle, so you add a spacer to straighten that out. Thanks for watching, guys. Again, my name is Dino from Playback Racing, bringing you modifications here in the Houston area.